I will call this meeting to order. It is now 5:01. Today is May 13th, 2024. We have a confirmation on the quorum.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. At this time, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please, to the U.S. flag and to our Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. At this time, we'll recognize a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next item is workshop or public hearings. Do we have anything to report on that? The next item is consent agenda items. I'd just like to remind the board that we have 12 consent items. I'm sure everybody's reviewed them, but now's the time if we want to discuss or we want to pull any of these items for further discussion. Okay. If not, I'll entertain the motions to move with the consent items.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
All second.
Dr. Holman, second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those against? This motion passes. We'll move on now to items for individual consideration. General Manager report. Ms. Gilbert.
So good afternoon, board members, Mr. Chair. In your packet, you have the board calendar. If any of you would like to attend any of the industry events that are coming in, please let us know. In your consent, you did have those who had requested the various different travel to be included and approved. If there's anything else, anybody else that we missed, please let us know and we can do that. Also, thank you so much, for attending the Hidalgo tour that we did. We split the board into 2 different sessions of the groups. I hope you all have found it very informative. And if there's any other tours of any other facilities, be glad to go ahead and coordinate that with y'all. For that concludes there. You'll hear more about other industry updates, droughts, and things of that nature through our staffing report. I will remind that since we won't meet until in June, that we have Memorial Day coming on, PUB holiday, and we will be closed on May 27th. That's it.
That's it. Okay, very well. So we'll move on to the next item, which is public comments. Do we have any public comments?
No public comments.
Okay, we'll move on to consideration and action on items. There will be no items being pulled out of consent, I'm sorry. We'll move on to staff reports and presentations to the board. I did talk to Ms. Gilbert. I think we're going to move item letter F.
Yes, at this time, we'd like to move, since we have quite a bit of items on staff reports, and so that way we don't have anybody who is here for the 2024 Project Share recipients. We could like to move that before. And also, we have some additional changes coming up on the staffing reports that we'll hear later. So if that's okay, we can just take the staff reports out of order. If we can go ahead and move F to start before the financial reports.
All right. Juan, does that require any further action to move letter F?
You can just motion to take that out of order and then take it out of order once it's been approved.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to take that item out of order. We're going to move letter F to the front of the line.
All second.
All right. We have a motion by Patricio, second by Dr. Holman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? This motion passes to move this item up.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Miguel Calles, Digital Information Platforms Manager with Brownsville Public Utilities Board. I'm here to announce today the recipients for our 2024 Project Share Scholarship. Every year, BPB funds the Project Share Scholarship, awarding 10 recipients $2,000. That's been increased this year Prior, it was a 1,000. Now we've increased the scholarship to 2,000. And this is to support their pursuit of higher education. This obviously reflects the commitment BPB has to the transformative power of education. So without further ado, as I call up the recipients' names, I'd like for them to come up to the podium. We'll follow up with a quick photo. We'll welcome the board to see if you'd like to take a quick photo with them to recognize them for their efforts. So without further ado, this year's 2024 scholarship recipients are Chloe Mares from Pace High School. Miss Larissa Ariaza from Hanna High School. Ms. Rebecca Loera from Los Fresnos High School. Ms. Mia Calderon from Hanna High School. America Rangel from Rivera High School. Ms. Sandra Salazar from Gladys Porter High School. Ms. Brianna Brajas from Veterans Memorial. Ms. Daya Anish from Idea Frontier. Ms. Abigail Rodriguez from Rivera. And finally, Ms. Kendra Rivera from Veterans Memorial. At this time, I'd like to invite the board to see if you'd like to take a photo with the scholarship recipients. Yes, right here, right here. And members of the executive team, if you'd like to join us as well.
Would you like us to
So,
coordinate?
go ahead and line up with us. We'll have the recipients here in front, and board members go ahead and step up a little bit more.
Thank you very much for that, and we'll go back now to the order, and we'll have, starting with our financial report with me, Mr. Pettis, and Mr. Pettis is going to give us a little bit of an update, and we have a couple of changes, and he'll guide through that information. Mike.
All right, so good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Mike Perez. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be presenting the financial performance report as of March 31st, 2024. So if you all recall, some time back, Dr. Zamora had requested that we present our financial report in a different format, and so this is what we are going to be presenting here tonight. We did set up a focus group made up of some customer service and key accounts personnel that had either very minimal or no financial experience, and so we wanted to get their insight. And we also met with Dr. Zamora, and so we took the focus groups and Dr. Zamora's comments and went ahead and incorporated some of those into this financial statement format. I would like to mention, though, that this is a living document, so this can be updated each month as necessary. There are other areas of focus that were identified that we anticipate incorporating into the presentation in the upcoming months. For instance, we'll be including a slide on financial risks, another one on regulatory and compliance updates, and then a future outlook and recommendations. So we intend to have those available for the next board meeting. So thank you for your patience. So we'll start off here with the executive summary. It focuses on 7 different categories. We do have a meter gauge for each one of them. Red representing poor, yellow would be average, and green would be good. And so under the flow of funds, we did see year-to-date $5.9 million that has been generated to fund some capital improvement projects. We also did see our debt service coverage exceed the minimum requirements significantly, right? They came in at 2.55 times as compared to the minimum requirement of 1.25 times. So we're doing good there. As far as the BPUB's average bill, it is slightly higher than the average MOU bill, but it is significantly lower than the average IOU bill for the 1,000 kWh user, and so we graded average here. We are doing a poor job, for our CIP spending. We've only spent $14 million year to date, and we are halfway through the year. This only represents 15.2% of the fiscal year 24 approved plan. I am going to go into a little bit more detail, provide some additional detail as to why we're seeing this and what the plan is going forward in another slide. We're seeing personnel and non-personnel expenses. They came in lower than budgeted, and those were primarily due to current vacancies and timing issues, so we're doing good there. We did see the COB cash transfer increase by about $230,000 over budget year to date, so that is great news or good news for the city of Brownsville. The FPEC, fuel purchase and energy charge, has generated an over-recovery of about $5.69 million as of March 31st. This will be used to offset some future market uncertainty as we head into the summer. So, and all key financial metrics are currently in compliance. So great news. So here we present a condensed statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. This is following generally accepted accounting principles. This is the normal statement that we would see under the annual comprehensive financial report. And so here we are comparing year-to-date activity as compared for the current year as compared to the prior year. I'm going to be focusing on the current year, fiscal year 24 numbers, and provide some information on some of the changes that we're seeing here. So. Starting out with operating revenues year to date, we're $98,274,000. Backing out operating expenses of $90,050,000, we arrive at operating income of $8,224,000. This represents about $9.2 million under prior year's operating income that's reported here at $17.4 million. And the primary driver here is the use of $9.4 million from the rate stabilization fund that the board approved to bring down the production costs for the customers in November and December. And so that's the primary driver there for that drop. Line 4, non-operating expenses, came in at $7,239,000, about $2 million under last year's number, and that's primarily due to increased interest earnings of about $2.4 million this year as compared to prior year. So this gives us income before capital contributions of $984,000. After we add in capital contributions of $3,847,000, we end up with an increase in net position of $4,832,000. And so here we've got a condensed summary of revenues and expenses on the flow of funds. This is basically following the bond ordinance. Basically, you could say that this is being reported on a cash basis, the same basis that we use for our budget. So here we are comparing our year-to-date actual to our year-to-date budget and our variances. So starting off with line 1, operating revenues, $101,732,000. They were about $17.2 million below budget. If you all remember, there's this line item here includes both base revenue and the fuel revenue. The fuel revenue is always tied or offset by our fuel expenses, and so we saw the majority of that decrease, about 16.7, which we see here in line 4, it's actually a reduction in those FPEC costs from the customers, right? So we're seeing record low natural fuel cost, and so that's one of the biggest drivers there. And so it's just a minor decrease in base revenues, but the majority of it represents the decrease in fuel revenues. We've got other revenues of $13,738,000. Those came in about $3 million above budget, and those really represent some ancillary services that were generated through the ERCOT market, and then a lot of it, a little over $2 million, represents an increase in interest income. So here, line 3, gross revenues, we ended up at $115,470,000. We subtract out the fuel and SRWA expenses of $34,322,000, and we end up at an adjusted gross revenue amount of $81,148,000. This is the basis for the 10% City of Brownsville transfer calculation. Once we back out the other requirements for O&M, non-operating debt service of $59,074,000, along with another $3 million in COB usage, we end up at a line 7 balance available after requirements of $19,071,000. Backing out the transfer of the COB, net of the COB usage of $5,111,000, and we end up at a balance available for transfers out of $13,959,000. Now, these funds that were available for transfers out were then used to fund $8,045,000 in budgeted CIP, leaving a balance of $5,914,000 to replenish the improvement fund. So one thing that I do want to make clear here is, in accordance with Section 14 of the bond covenants, that pretty much dictates the priority of spending of utility revenues. Right, so the first priority being pay your O&M expenses. Priorities 2 through 9 are to make our debt service payment and funding of debt service reserves. Right, priority number 10 is the transfer to the City of Brownsville. Priority number 11 represents a replenishment of the operating fund, or operating reserve, I'm sorry. And then the 12th and final priority is the replenishment of the capital improvement fund, right, which is where the 5.9 will be flowing into. Now, this is what we refer to as a closed loop system. Those funds are going to now get reinvested into our capital infrastructure, meaning that, you know, we were going to be able to use this on a cash basis to fund our capital improvements rather than having to go out and issue debt and then incur debt service and interest, right? And so this, in essence, would keep the rates for the ratepayers down. Right. One other thing that I would like to point out, as far as that arriving at that $5.9 million, it is a combination of an increased revenues. We are seeing about $2 million increase in revenues, but the majority of those funds represent a reduction in our O&M expenses as compared to budget. And the big reason there is it's really a timing issue. You know, we usually close our monthly books between the 10th and the 12th of every month. And so those invoices that are coming, we really don't have the opportunity or the time really to accrue any of the expenditures to belong in March in this case. And so they end up being recorded in April. We're lagging about a month behind. And so that's why we're seeing this number. So that 5.9 varies month to month. I've already seen some preliminary numbers for April, and that number is going to drop $1 million. Just to let you know. So we won't know the true number really until the end of the year when we do accrue and have the auditors come in and audit those numbers. Here we've got a budget to actual comparison for our O&M personnel expenses for the current year and the prior 5 years. We do see that the year-to-date personnel actuals are below budget, primarily due to some current vacancies of approximately 52 positions, right? And the large variance that we see here in fiscal year 2022 is attributable to the compensation study that wasn't fully implemented really until early of 2023. And here we've got a budget to actuals for the non-personnel O&M expenses. They did drop, the actuals did drop below budget by about $4.6 million. And the major reason for that really is because of the timing the expenses that I just went over. We did see, like I mentioned earlier, we did see an increase in the City of Brownsville's transfer of about $230,000 as compared to budget, and about $410,000 above last year's actual. So this is, again, good news for the City of Brownsville. Here we present the average electric bill and the fuel and purchased energy charts. So we do see that the average electric bill for BPUB was at $139.48, and this is per the 1,000 kWh residential user, right? The FPEC rate of 7.841 cents did generate us an over-recovery as of the end of March of $5.69 million that should aid BPUB in managing market uncertainty as we enter the summer months. So here we have our capital improvement plan. As reported earlier, we are doing a poor job. The approved plan for fiscal year 24 was at $91,717,000. Halfway through the year, we've only spent $13,982,000, representing about 15.25%. The majority of the spending here, we can see it's in routine activities. Really, it's the trouble calls that staff has been working on, and customer connections, right? Below, we do see a capital spending 5-year history, and we can see that the majority or the biggest spend that we see here is back in 2019 at about $38 million, representing about 46.7%. So now, some of the reasons that we're seeing that's impacting the low completion percentage in the fiscal year 2024 are pretty much, we're still seeing some long lead times on materials and equipment. We have approximately about $4.5 million budgeted in the CIP for vehicles and capital equipment, right? And so those vehicles and equipment have already been ordered. They've been in order for a while now. They've been encumbered, but we don't see an expense for them yet because they haven't been delivered. So we're not going to pay for them until we get them delivered, and so that causes some of the discrepancies there that we're seeing. We're also seeing a lack of resources, both internal and external. We've been seeing a lot of high construction in the city, a lot of projects for SpaceX, a lot of the projects at the port that we're looking at, and so that brings down the pool of contractors available for our own projects, right? We've noted also that there's some work orders that are not being closed out on a timely basis, and so the funds are still being shown as unencumbered, right? And so we are addressing that, and we'll be closing out those work orders and revising the CIP plan. We've also seen delays in receiving invoices from the City of Brownsville for their street projects. We are responsible to reimburse the city for the utility services on those street projects. And so once they've been completed for X reason, the invoices just haven't been flowing down to us. So we've already contacted the city about this, and so hopefully we'll start receiving those invoices sooner than later, and we're ready to pay them and get them off the CIP plan. We have multiple projects that are, again, they're very dependent on the City of Brownsville projects or TxDOT projects, right? And they're facing the same dilemmas that we are facing with lead times and available resources, contractors available for the projects, right? We've also identified some coding errors where staff has been coding some of the capital work to O&M rather than capital, and so that again skews the percentage completion. So we're working on identifying those costs, and we'll be reclassifying them to capital as they're needed. So what are we doing about this? So our Chief Operating Officer has initiated a plan to mitigate these obstacles. A meeting was held back on April the 25th with all the directors to conduct an in-depth review of the capital projects. A lot of the projects were identified with little to no activity for an extended period of time. And so all directors were tasked with prioritizing their CIP projects and closing out projects completed or no longer necessary. We will be regrouping with the team here on May the 23rd. So a month later from the initial meeting, we'll see where we stand. We've also initiated or looking for a capital management and planning software to assist with the prioritization and implementation of the CIP projects. One root cause of the low completion percentage is that most of the project costs are being lumped into that first year, when really in the first year, we're looking at the RFP process, we're looking at maybe some engineering design, and really the construction doesn't really get started till about year 2. And these are multi-year projects, and so you'll be seeing cost in years 2 and 3, and so we just need to do a better job of aligning the cost by year, really. And so the software will definitely help with that. Staff did issue out an RFP for this particular software. They did get 11 responses or proposals, and the team has been put together, about seven members of staff, and they're going to be going over and rating, I guess, the 11 proposals on May the 22nd. So there's more to come on that. The final goal, really, that we've set is to bring the CIP plan for fiscal year 2025 to a more manageable level, around $40 to $50 million. And so I know I shared a lot of information there. I'll go ahead and stop and see if you all have any questions regarding the CIP plan.
Any questions or concerns on, I know, Mike, you provided us with a lot of information very quickly. But I'm sure there's some questions or concerns by any of the board members. Dr. Holman?
If you don't mind, I definitely appreciate the update. I hope you guys will continue to keep us updated on the progress, where we do move these projects around and make them align with multiple fiscal years better. But I think this is a great step in the right direction.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, I think we've previously discussed, just the project management. So if there's any projects that are no longer needed, I think that would be an interesting category to understand a little bit further. So
Yes. We've got a separate, I guess what we're calling a parking lot for those projects that are really not moving along, and I guess they're not priority, right? But at some point in time, they'll have to get done, and so we're just parking them.
One of my concerns, Mike, it seems that we're kind of have been discussing this for the last couple of years, and the CIP is not really moving at a very quick pace. I do understand that some of these projects are a year or 2 years before they come into play, but I'm hoping we can catch up. I don't know if this software is going to help us. Perhaps it will. The other concern that I noted here is with carrying 52 vacancies, that tells me that there's a lot of employees that are not here to help, perhaps in some of these, to move some of these projects along. But those are a couple of my concerns or my comments. Anything else?
Well, I have a comment about the overall presentation. I know you're not done with it, but I just wanted to say thank you. Really, I know you and your team worked so hard on this, and you've done a fabulous job. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thanks to my staff, our staff.
And I know that you recently earned another award, right?
For the Treasury and Accounting, I'm not specifically investment policy? Okay. So,
What was that award about? Can anybody tell us?
Yes, we did. So on the investment policy and Treasury and Accounting.
Yeah, we did read about it, and
So congrats
Yeah.
on that
Yeah,
to you and your
congrats.
team.
Can we get
Thanks, sister.
safety to check out Mike's bookshelf? Make sure it's on par. We don't want anything collapsing.
okay, anything else on this item? You have more to
Yes,
present?
I've got a couple of more slides here to go through. So here we've got our key financial metrics that we're tracking. This has already been covered. Debt service coverage ratio came in at actual through March at 2.55 times compared to the minimum requirement of 1.25 times. Our outstanding debt is at $272 million with an annual debt service of $28,884,000. Our debt to capitalization ratio is at 40% for fiscal year 2023 as compared to the municipal utility medium of 38%. And what Really, what this means is it indicates that PPUB's capital structure consists of 40% debt, right? And it also indicates that PPUB has the capacity or additional capacity for borrowing funds for future projects, right? And so we are doing extraordinarily well with cash on hand. Our days cash on hand is at 372 days compared to the industry standard of about 180 days. Bond ratings at Moody's at A2, while Fitch and S&P is at an A-, with all three with an outlook stable. All of our reserves are fully funded. We've got a capital improvement reserve at $15 million in compliance with the bond covenants. Our debt service reserves for junior and senior liens are net of the surety policies at $15,144,000. This is normally the reserve that's set aside for the annual average debt service. It's at around $29 million. So the net between the 15 and the 29 is what we carry through the surety policy. And then our operating cash reserve is set at $17 million. On this
I
last
had
slide.
a quick question
yes.
on the debt capacity. Is there a number associated with that? I mean, is there like an estimate?
No, we've run those estimates before. Our debt capacity right now is between 100 to 130 million dollars.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
so this is on the last slide. We provide some customer receivable metrics. We can see that 90% of our customer receivables are current. Another 7.6% is within 30 days, and the remainder of 2.4% is 60 days or over, right? We've got some utility assistance year to date of $138,000. This is significantly below prior year's assistance that we received. The major difference here is that the agencies did get a federal funding cut, right? And so they're working with less money. However, the KCOS did receive an amendment of additional $2 million here this past March, right? But they've got about 950 applications that are still in the queue. They're pending, so right now they're not accepting any additional applications. So one of the things that PUB is doing to mitigate some of this is that we've gone ahead and entered into an agreement or a partnership with CCRGV to assist us in issuing out utility assistance from our SHARE program. We have about $1.2 million that's available, and so that should be kicking off pretty soon, and to provide assistance for our customers. And we just provided a glossary of terms in case anybody needs. So that's all I have. Like I said, this presentation did take a little longer, really because I wanted to provide detail on each of the slides that we're presenting here. My intent or my recommendation going forward will be to maybe focus on the first 3 slides, which will be the executive summary, the condensed gap statement, and the condensed flow of funds statement. The rest of the slides and the statements will be updated monthly and will be made available to the board for the review. And certainly, if you all have any questions regarding any of that information, we'll be glad to answer them every month during the presentation. So if you all are okay with that, we in the interest of time, this probably took 15, 20 minutes.
I don't know, 15, 20 minutes of you talking, that's kind of fun.
I don't mind doing it every month, but I just don't want to put you to sleep.
Maybe quarterly, not every month.
It's obviously been a really good presentation,
Or,
Mike.
yeah, we can certainly do that on a quarterly
quarterly.
basis. So this is March, so
Quarterly.
next full presentation could be June, September, and so the quarter of every year.
It's great information. Those folks who are perhaps listening to this meeting, you and your staff obviously have us in a really positive financial outlook. Thank you.
And as I mentioned, we'll be incorporating some additional information in here going forward. So now, if no further questions, then I would recommend that we skip items B, C, and D, as there's no significant updates to the report. And one of those, the CIP, I've already covered, right? So if you're all okay, we can jump into the investment report.
Sounds good.
Yes?
All right.
Okay.
We'll jump into the quarterly investment report. Is George here?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Jorge Santillan, Treasury and Accounting Manager. And we're going to go over the the investment report for the quarter ended March 31st, 2024.
Is this what the award was for?
Yes. Yeah, for the award was for the investment policy, comprehensive investment policy that complies with the Public Funds Investment Act. This report complies with the Public Funds Investment Act, and all the investment transactions made during this quarter were in full compliance with the Act and BPUB investment policy. We're going to be looking at the table, looking at the first column, the asset by class. First, we have the bank deposits with the total market value. That's the third column of $13,790,069.67. The percentage of portfolio, that's the third to the last column, 6.83%. And the yield to maturity, 4.48, that's the second to the last column. Next, we have the certificate of deposits, total market value, $7,989,000. As a percentage of portfolio, 3.95. Yield to maturity, 5.50. Next, the investment pools, market value, $133,980,696.17. Percentage of portfolio, 66.33, and the yield to maturity, 5.45. U.S. Treasury notes, market value, $46,232,154. Percentage of portfolio, 22.89. Yield to maturity, 5.20. Looking at the total market value, total portfolio value is $201,991,919.84. The yield to maturity at the end of the quarter was 5.33. Just as a reference, the previous quarter we ended at 5.40, so this quarter we had a 7 basis points decrease. This is a new chart that we did not include in the previous quarter, and this line graph compares the BPUB's net yield to the S&P Pool Index and the 91-day T-bill, which is our benchmark. In the blue line, that's the BPUB's yield. The red, that's the S&P Pool Index, and the green one, the 91-day T-bill. At the end of the quarter, as of March 31st, BPUB ended 1 basis point over the S&P and 10 basis points over the 91-day T-bill. Now, since March 2022, here we have 9 quarters. BPUB exceeded or matched the S&P index 6 out of the 9 quarters and exceeded the 91-day T-bill all the quarters. For all the quarters, BPUB exceeded our benchmark of the 91-day T-bill. This is the detail of all our investments. Lines are 1, 2, and 3, that's the bank deposits. Looking at the second to the last column, market value, total of $13,790,069.67. The yield to maturity, 5.20 on our Wells Fargo investment account and 1.65 on our checking account at Wells Fargo. Next, certificates of deposit, lines 4 to 35. Total market value, $7,989,000, with a yield to maturity ranging from 5.25 to 5.77. Next, the investment pools, lines 39 to 52. Total market value, $139,980,696.17, with a yield to maturity of 5.14 to 5.89. And lastly, the U.S. Treasury notes, lines 53 to 58. Total market value, $46,232,154, with a yield to maturity of 5.04 to 5.37. The total market value, again, $201,991,919.84. The total yield to maturity, 5.33 at the end of the quarter. And the rest of the pages, there are supplementary information. Any questions?
Any questions on this item? No, George, I don't think so. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move along with, what do we have, Marilyn, the drought update? Mr. Garcia?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Guadalupe Garcia. I'm the Water Resources Administrator for Brownsville PUB. And this evening, I'll be going over the drought update. Okay. So here we have just a meter that we have currently on May 4th, 2024. The current percentages for the Amistad and Falcon reservoirs did stand at 20.6%. 20.6% kind of brings us at our midpoint for our drought stage 2. We started at 25%, and at 15%, we jump into stage 3. So we're right at that middle point for drought stage 2. Here we have a graph that shows the history that we've been able to track for as far as monthly, what the reservoirs are currently doing. I've presented already on the 21, 22, and 23. You can see them there on track. Our 2024, you can see we are currently in a downtrend. The last previously 3 readings that you can see they're going to be on your left-hand side. From April 13th, 2024, it was at 21.7. April 20th, we're at 21.4. April 27th, we're at 21.0. So we're diminishing 0.3 to 0.4% every week moving forward as what we're seeing the trends going. So pretty much the bottom line for this is the National Weather Service did provide us some information. So forecast indicates above average temperatures with above average evaporation rates and little to no soil moisture in our region. Stage 2 water restrictions, they're going to continue. One of the things that they mentioned was that they're predicted to worsen through early summer. Sufficient inflows from Mexico tributaries remain unlikely from May through July. They're also very low on their percentages with their water storage in both Amistad and Falcon Reservoir. The water crisis in May, there's a water crisis in May or June is likely for agriculture and some municipalities. Cameron County did issue out a disaster declaration on May 15th of 2024. This disaster declaration did provide information having to do with the drought, the severity of drought here in our area. Also, I just want to remind you that we are coming up to our hurricane season beginning on June 1st for 2024. And hopefully we do get some very much needed rains through that. But I just want to point that out that it is coming up here in the next 2 weeks. And with that, I do conclude my drought update presentation. Is there any questions?
Yes, there was a model that somebody with a lot of expertise in these types of models was working on to be able to give us better predictions, right?
Yes, so the International Boundary Water Commission, they are currently working in a model. It's still in the works. Okay. It's a lot of information that they have to gather both from the United States and Mexico. They still haven't put that model together. They are working through it. Once they make that model publicly available, we will present it to the board.
Do you have any idea on the timeline?
I do not have.
So it might be
idea.
a year from now. I mean,
it very well could. Yes, I don't have that timeline. Like I mentioned, it is federal parties that are working on that model.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So how closely are we working with the city of Brownsville on their water usage? I noticed their bill went up again this month, and I was just curious. Are we feeding that back to them? Are we working to help reduce their water usage?
I do not have an answer for you, Dr. Hoffman, right now, but we can get you that answer, that response to you.
Okay, and also I think our own water usage should be monitored and even talked about. And we should ensure that PUB is doing its best to reduce its usage as well.
Yes.
Well, we can still pray for more rain or for some rain. Thank you, Mr. Garcia, for that presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman.
The next item,
So, Mr. Chair, before we advance to the advanced meter AMI, do you want to do, well, we can go ahead and add the drought presentation if you would like, and a usage of PUB usage and where we're at, some trend analysis, and we'll incorporate onto there. Also, just as a reminder, just because you see rain outside doesn't mean that the water is going into our reservoir system. It helps probably our Resaca system and drainage going in here, and we are expected to receive rain later on today, and several things. Hopefully, it'll come in on there. So,
I don't think we were expected to see much rain today, but if so, that'd be great. I mean, even though it won't
There's
go
a
into our
chance.
reservoir.
just kidding about rain.
I mean, yes. Every day I go outside, and look up and like,
and with that,
I'm sorry, Mr. Nutter, we're ready, thank you.
Okay. Chairman, members of the board, I'm here to, my name's Eddie Hernandez. I'm here to do an update on the AMI project. Just as a quick recap, the main pieces of the AMI solution are our main four vendors are Landis and Gear. They're providing the electric meters, the grid stream, mesh RF network, that's the communications network, and the command center head-end system. The head-end system is the system that the meters report to, and it collects all the information, and then it reports back. On the water side, we have Badger. They're doing the water meters, the Badger Orion LTE cellular endpoints. The water system communicates via cellular endpoints, and they have the Beacon head-end system. And then we have SmartWorks, which is the meter data management system for the electric and water meters. So that's really kind of like a data warehouse. All the information comes back to the MDMS, the meter data management system, and it sits there. And then the other systems, like the customer information system, will pull information from that database. And then Allegiant, they are the installers. They will install the electric and water meters and the communications network for the electric side. So those are the main four. We're done, I shouldn't say done. We have completed contracting with them, and we're finally starting to move forward. So we're actually in the starting to get done process. This, as far as planned integrations, this is a very complex system. This is the easy diagram. This is the one, this is as easy as we could simplify it. This shows some of the various systems in PUB that we have. At the very top in the middle, you'll see the CIS, that's the customer information system. And right below that, right in the middle of everything, is the meter data management system. Earlier today, one of the things that you all approved is the integration between those two systems. So we have about 20 different systems talking to each other when it's all said and done. But the really neat thing about this is about 20 years ago, we started looking at a plan to do all of this. And we started putting pieces of that puzzle in place. And this is kind of finally going to tie all those pieces together. Not just the customer information system and the metering system, but the geographic information system. When the OMS system comes online, hopefully in about a year and a half, that'll tie into that and feed information. So it's the pieces of the puzzle are finally coming together after about 20 years of planning. Project kickoff. On April 22nd to the 24th, we had our official project kickoff. Like I said, all the contracting, all the legal was finally completed. So we thought the best way to get this started was to invite everybody here. So in this room, we had about 85 people in here. PUB staff and our vendors, give them an opportunity to meet each other, talk to each other. The vendors went through their presentations and explained what was going to, here are the next steps, here's kind of the overall vision, and this is what we're going to need from you guys. And then they were able to meet with their the PUB teams of people. We had probably about 40 to 50 PUB staff in here from electric meter shop, water meter shop. I think warehouse was here, finance. We had people from all over, the customer service group, et cetera. Everybody got to meet with everybody. We're going to be working together for the next 3 years. So we kicked off the project, and it went really well. So what's next? So here's the map for the things that are coming up. Basically, we've had a lot of the teams in hibernation. The extended contracting that needed to take place because of the switch in law firms, we kind of put all the other teams in hibernation for a little bit to wait. Now we're waking them back up. That was part of the kickoff meeting and getting them going. As you can see, one of the important pieces there was the Cayenne integrations, which we passed today. Then we will actually start activating all the teams and getting them all rolling. One of the neat things is, I was just mentioning to one of the board members earlier, is to this point, it's all been paying consultants and attorneys who you need. But the neat thing was that on Friday, we actually received the first invoice for meters and communication devices for our test system, which if you look at the second to the last box, we kind of go through requirements gathering, system implementation, bench testing. That's where we test the meters to make sure that the meters that that the electric meter shop has ordered, because they're very complex and all the little different features that they have to measure different voltages and such. So we bench test everything. Once that's accepted, then at that point, they actually start building our meters in mass production. And at that point, we can then let the electric meter shop that, okay, from this point forward, this is the meter you order, whether not only for AMI, but also for new construction. That way, we don't continue buying the old meters, which is what we have to do right now because we haven't bench tested. So hopefully in June and July, we'll do the bench testing. That's where we'll accept the product. And once we do that, then we move forward. And the new electric meters, even though we don't have the AMI system in, like if you do a new subdivision, you'll put the new meters in, they'll just be sitting there. We can still read them manually. They'll just be waiting to be activated. So that's neat. And then we do AMI deployment and for the initial deployment area, it's about 16 gateways and 33 routers for the entire system. In December and through February, we'll do the initial deployment area. That's the test where we actually test everything to make sure that all the pieces work together, that the electric meters and the communication system works and pulls information into the head end, from the head end to the meter data management system, from the meter data management system to the various systems that we were showing you earlier. You run the whole thing and make sure it works well. And then once it does, then you do the final. Then after that, it's off to the races. Then it's installing meters for the next 2 years. So now the real work begins. POs for the meters are being issued. The systems, a lot of the systems that we have are off-site. They're software as a service. That's new for PUB, so we're kind of moving into that aspect. And so those systems are being stood up. We're starting to take a look at the software integrations. The meter lids and boxes that we found that needed to be repaired are being ordered. We already did the installation of the meter lids in the IDA area, the downtown area, and the other areas that I'll show you. There were about 1,500 lids there that needed to be done. We did that over one weekend with PUB staff.
That was a lot less than what
That's
you thought
just
was
the initial
possible, right?
deployment area, though. All in all,
Okay.
it's going to be about 38,500 lids that need to be replaced. Because currently we have a lot of steel lids back from the last 50 years. And they won't transmit through the steel.
I
So
see.
you replace the plastic, then you drill it and put the little radio, and it sits, it's flush, but it sits through the lid, and then the rest of the radio is in the meter pit. But we did the downtown area and the outlying areas that we need for the test area. So that's already been done. And then the internal PUB teams, like I said, we're waking them up. They're going to start meeting. They'll start meeting on things like to do the actual testing, the bench testing, also to look at what communications do we want to put forth to the community? How do we want to explain that we're doing this? This is a technology upgrade. It's like going from an iPhone 14 to an iPhone 15 to a 16. So those are the types of things that we need to figure out, okay, how do we want to present this to the public? all of that with our consultants and the various internal teams. We'll get together to start hammering that out. And again, we'll be going through the meter upgrades. We'll be working with staff on the metering upgrades. One of the things that we did to try to save some money is we have facilities right behind us, the old warehouse. So rather than having Allegiant come in and hire and rent a warehouse and rent facilities somewhere else, they're using our facilities. So instead of just sitting there empty, or with stuff we put into it, like the garage, the warehousing team went in, cleaned everything out, set up racks for us, and we'll be receiving the meters, our AMI meters there, our electric and water meters. So we're saving that cost, and it is additional work for staff, but I'd like to thank the warehousing staff for helping us out with that. And it's on site under our security, so that's great. But those are the types of things that we're working on. The initial deployment area, this is a map of what the initial deployment area looks like. We have the downtown area. One of the things that we tried to do was pick the harder areas. Where are we going to have problems? That's what we wanted to pick for the initial deployment area to test, because we figured if we can make it work in the more difficult areas, then the rest should be hopefully easier. So we picked the downtown area. It's a high-density area. They're tight areas, including alleys. So that's one of the areas that we chose on the southmost area. If you see the map at the very bottom, it's a light yellow. The issue there is communications. We know that communications are a bit difficult in that area from our previous history. So we chose that area to make sure that we have good, strong signals. The cellular systems on the water side that are in that area, they use a different frequency, so hopefully it'll be easier, but let's go ahead and test it. Midtown, we chose some apartment complexes that have water and electric just to kind of see, okay, are there any differentiations there? The fact that we got a bunch of meters together shouldn't matter, but let's go ahead and take a look at that. How do we deal with them? It gives us an idea of how we'll deal with the apartment complexes as we move on. West Alton Glore, they're water-only customers, so again, it's cellular, so we shouldn't have a problem. But again, we can it'll allow us to do some stress testing. Also, we included a handful of BISD schools and some commercial along. Obviously, the majority are residential, but we also chose some commercial areas and some BISD schools. We wanted to get a good mix of different customers and different situations, and historically, BISD has been poking at us, so I think they'll be happy with it. This is a quick overview of the budget. On the far left-hand side, that's the initial proposed budget. This is the budget that we put forth when we started the project, just to kind of like, okay, this was not meant to be all-encompassing. This was more meant as placeholders. But you can see that the total at the very bottom is 29.7 million. And then we move across, and if you look in the middle, at the yellow highlighted column, the actual budget, this is the actual as how it's breaking out today. And some of the contracts are a little bit lower, some are a little bit higher. We've also rolled in some different things that have popped up. The interfaces were a little more expensive than we thought they were going to be, but they're necessary. Legal expenses, obviously, at the beginning, we didn't know how much that was going to be, and then we didn't realize that we were going to switch firms, so that kind of doubled up there. The lids that we talked about earlier, various miscellaneous expenses, but so far I think we've got the majority of we've got all of the major pieces that we're aware of today. And if you look at the bottom, we're still sitting at 29.7 million. So we're still on budget. We have about 2.6 million in our contingency, so we have a little bit of wiggle room, less than 10%, but we still got a little bit of wiggle room there. So hopefully that'll carry us. And other than that, that's really the overview of the report. Any questions?
Any questions from any of the board members? Any comments?
So one question that came up is, how long do we expect to shut off service for an individual customer as we install these new water meters, these new electric meters?
Should be pretty minimal. I haven't gotten the exact timeframes, but just in thinking about it, really like with the electric meter, really you can flip the switch you can flip the switch so power is still going to the house. It's just not being metered. Then you pull the meter, you get the new meter, you pop it in, you bring the switch back down, and it activates.
And they can do that while it's hot?
They can do that while it's hot. I'm looking to see if I have anybody from electrical here.
Verify that.
Yeah, so they just do, they flip the bypass and rock and roll. Yeah, most of them do. Most of the newer installations. There may be a handful of older installations, and if it's a really old installation, like an A-base meter, we're not going to touch it anyway,
Yeah.
because they're just not compatible, period. But there's only a handful of those. There's about 100 of those. Well, less than 1,000. Let me take that back. There's less than 1,000 of those, and that's just a very old meter that's like from the 60s and earlier that we can't touch. On the water side, the majority are just endpoints, so basically the brass stays in place, the meter. We screw off the old endpoint, we put on the new one, and go. There are some meters, some larger meters. I'm thinking maybe mainly on the commercial side, where we also took the opportunity to look at it and do we have the right kind of meter in place? Because if you don't have the right meter in place, then you're not measuring properly. It doesn't measure low flow or high flow. Some of the big meters are compound meters. So we took the opportunity to look at it and say, okay, do we have the right meters in place? If we don't, let's get the right meter. Those may be a little bit longer. Typically with those, they'll do a bypass to attempt to keep feeding the customer while we put the larger meters in place.
Okay.
Okay, nothing else?
Well, so how are we handling our connectivity? I know initially we were thinking about using the BTX fiber, but we received a $40 million quote per year. Are we working around that? Are we going to be using that $40 million fiber connection?
We don't need the fiber connection. Really, on the water side, it's cellular. So it's communicating like your phone does through a cellular signal. So on the water side, we don't need anything. On the electric side, we need a connection to the internet, but basically what happens is the meters will transmit up to one of the collectors. The collector is what it collects signals from a couple of thousand meters, and then it transmits back. In 12 years ago when we did this, it was coming through PUB. Okay, so in that case, that fiber would have been very useful to us in order to bring the signal back and bring it here so that we could process it and then send that information to Landis+Gyr here. In this case, the collector is basically sending it straight up to them, and they're collecting it, and that's why we're doing software as a service. So it doesn't really, we don't need it for that. PUB can take advantage of it in other ways. So it is a useful project. It's a great project. I'm sure we will find to replace our current fiber optic network that we have, the figure eight that we have around the city that connects all of our major facilities. That'll be great because it's underground, it's hardened. It's I'm not going to say hurricane proof. Nothing is hurricane proof, but it's better because right now our old fiber network is in the air. But for the AMI project, we don't really need it. We can make use of it for other PUB initiatives.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that because I know that was a big surprise for us. Then final thing is I know we were talking about that BTX site downtown. We had talked to the city about putting in a little kind of booth informational area. Have you guys done that yet?
We haven't done that yet. That's really the next step. Like I said, we're waking up the teams.
Okay, great.
And so one of the main teams that we need to pull together, and they had already started. They just kind of stopped since everything was taking a little bit longer because of the legal contracting, because of that situation. But now that we got things rolling, okay, we're waking them back up and saying, okay, here are the things that you need to cover. And one of the things is messaging to the community. For instance, when Allegiant comes in and starts putting meters in, they will co-brand, well, the plan, if it's approved by management and everyone else, the plan is to co-brand Allegiant with PUB and let people know that, hey, there's going to be somebody in your backyard switching meters out, and this is who it is. Here's their logo, here's who they are. They will have IDs from us. They will be uniformed. We have to plan out everything so that the customer is confident and understands. At least we make the effort to explain that this is who we're working with. This is what they're going to be doing. Here's their logo. Here's what they look like. They should have an ID. If there's any concerns, then they're trained to tell the customer, here's the number for PUB. Please call PUB, and PUB will verify who I am if there's any kind of questions like that. Also, you want to do some general messaging to promote the project and let the customers know the benefits.
Right, so the messaging is extremely important, especially because a lot of people will be at work during the day. If they're like me, they have dogs in their backyard right next to that meter.
Mhm.
Is that by design?
Yeah. I've been trying to get a discount. They have yet to work. It's important that we figure out how to make sure people know when these people will be by, when we'll be installing these meters, and how we're going to handle the fact that people are away and we may not have access to their backyard. But all part of the process. I'm just glad that we're moving forward with the messaging as well.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Anything else?
Very excited about this, so thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Okay, moving right along. Let's see, we have a Human Resources report from Dr. Emilia Guerra.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the
Oh,
board.
you got to bring the microphone down.
Emilia Guerra, Director of Human Resources. Sorry about that. So today I'm going to give I'm going to try to be brief report on, you all received an 11-page report on workforce data. And so I just want to go over some of the highlights of that report with you tonight. So human capital management has emerged as the most serious issue in post-COVID times. Employers must increasingly see employees as an invaluable and intangible asset. It is vital for us to evaluate, measure, monitor, and report on our workforce. By analyzing our workforce data, we can detect any gaps between our staffing and our current and predicted needs. So the metrics that we have provide insight that enables us to identify patterns and trends, analyze risks, discover opportunities for action, and most importantly, take action to make sure that we are ready to accomplish our objectives. So the first set of data is the turnover data. And on your report, this is on pages 1 through page 3. So total turnover for fiscal year 2024 is at 4.7%. The average turnover between fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2023 was 11.9%. Since 2020, total turnover has ranged from a high of 13% in fiscal year 2021 to a low of 9.5% in fiscal year 2020. We also measure voluntary turnover because that is important for us. And so as of this fiscal year, we've had a total of 30 employees who have separated from the company, with 21 of these employees leaving voluntarily. 7 of the employees who left voluntarily left because of, or they expressed in their exit interviews that they left because of compensation. It was, they had obtained a better job, or they were not satisfied with their wages here at PUB. As we look at our turnover trends, we can see that this is an area where we are improving as our turnover rate is on a decline. We believe that one of the main drivers that our turnover is decreasing is the implementation of our compensation study in fiscal year 2023. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the board for your support in funding our compensation study last year. On behalf of executive management and all PUB employees, we appreciate your commitment to offering our employees competitive wages. If the trend continues, we estimate our voluntary turnover for fiscal year 2024 will not exceed 41 positions, which is much lower than the actual fiscal year 2023 and the average for 2021 and 2023. When we compare ourselves with other organizations, our turnover rate is lower than the Texas statewide turnover average for classified personnel, which is 18.7% for fiscal year 2023. In summary, we see a significant potential for improvement in the retention of employees with less than 5 years of employment, which currently accounts for 51% of all voluntary separations. Next, we move to the retirement data. Of our current workforce, 122 employees, or 21% of our workforce, are eligible to retire under TMRS. Of the employees that are eligible to retire, 50 of these employees are also eligible for paid health benefits until they reach the age of 65. Over the next 10 years, the number of employees eligible to retire will continue to increase. Based on our current workforce, with 50.4% of the current workforce eligible to retire by 2033. We further provide a breakdown of employees eligible to retire by role, and we can see that currently we have 78% of our directors, 100% of our division managers, and 45% of our managers who are eligible to retire. In summary, as we look at the retirement eligibility numbers, we can see this is an area where we are going to have to focus more heavily. When we have this many employees at the management level who are eligible to retire, we will lose a lot of institutional knowledge, and we need to focus our efforts on developing a strong succession program. Next, we move to our staffing and internal advancement data. In this section, we look at the hiring of external candidates in comparison to internal movement. This information helps us to assess the success of internal training programs and our efforts to develop the talent within BPUB. For fiscal year 2024, year-to-date, we have filled 26 positions with internal candidates and 38 positions with external candidates. The 5-year average of internal versus external hiring is 48% external and 52% internal. These figures are significant because they demonstrate our commitment to following our policy number 2, which requires that we fill new or vacant jobs from within the organization if qualified applicants are available, as well as recognizing and accommodating upward mobility. This process also tells a recruitment effort story, whereas we have a vacancy that is filled internally, it may trigger one or more cycles of the recruitment process as we eventually fill the positions with external candidates. We place a big emphasis on internal advancement, and in fiscal year 2024, year-to-date, we have had 72 employees advance in their careers. Of these, 26 competed for a higher level position and moved into a vacant position, and 46 were promoted to a position because the employee acquired a higher level certification or skill set. For fiscal year 2024, we see an increase in promotions already surpassing the 5-year average. Most changes account for plant operators, new CDL holders, and line workers moving forward in their career paths. In summary, we need to continue providing the financial resources to fund employee training and development efforts. Next, we look at tenure. And tenure is presented on page 8 of your report. The average tenure of the current PUB workforce is 10.4 years. 230 employees have been with PUB less than 5 years. 115 have been with us for between 5 and 10 years. 145 have been with us between 10 and 20 years. And we have an additional 100 employees who have been with us for over 20 years, with over half of this group having been with us for more than 25 years. Around 58% of our employees have a tenure below 10 years. In summary, this data shows us that we have a relatively high percentage of employees with very low tenure at PUB. This is one of the key focus areas for HR, and our challenge is to increase the retention of employees who have been here 5 years or less. So next we move to the headcount data. Currently, we are budgeted for 642 employees. As of the date of this report, we had 49 vacancies, and the majority of our vacancies are in 3 divisions: the electrical systems, the water wastewater engineering and planning, and our water wastewater operations divisions. Our management to staff ratio is 1 manager for every 8.7 employees, and we are currently supplementing our workforce with 8 temporary employees. In summary, the higher vacancies that we are experiencing in the 3 areas mirror the turnover data that we have presented. Many of these vacancies are due to challenges in filling highly skilled technical positions which require certain licenses or certifications. And then the final section is on salary. So our total annual personnel budget is over $36 million. The average salary for all employees is $61,368, with an average hourly rate of $29.50. The lowest hourly rate is $14.34, and that was also a result of our compensation study last year, so that's the lowest that we pay any employee at PUB. The average pay for all females is higher than the average pay for males by 3.4%. However, the median pay for all females is approximately 6.9% lower than the median pay for all males. In summary, we believe the study that we had last year helped us to close a significant gap in our employee compensation when compared to the market and national averages. However, today's workforce is rapidly evolving, and we must stay up to date on market changes in compensation and benefits to continue being competitive and retain our workforce. And so we will be providing this data for you on a monthly basis, so you can see it as it changes. And we probably will need to schedule a compensation committee, Dr. Holman, so that we can be ready for the budget. Okay. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Great job with that presentation.
Thank you.
Great information. Wow, it was a lot. So give me your 2 main takeaways from this.
So we
Like the most important things for us to keep out.
So one of the things that we've been working with executive management on our retention, right? We do want to have our employees stay here. We've seen our retention of our employees who have less than 5 years. It's going up, and we want to make sure that we try to target that group of employees to do something for them so that they don't leave us before that 5-year period. They do get vested at 5 years with TMRS. So that was one of our key takeaways. Another thing that we do need to invest in, if we've, to some degree, helped the compensation factor, now we need to look at the other component, which is our benefits. And so that is what we want to bring to you some options on how we can improve our benefits. Some of these options are not going to cost us anything. Some of them do involve money. So we want to have that done in time for the budget.
One other question. So the vacancies that are due to people needing special certifications or licenses, is it because they're not available locally, and you have to hire people who have been trained somewhere else?
No, so like our line worker program, we work closely with Texas State Technical Institute. We bring them in at a certain level as apprentice line workers if we can. Our employees, the Texas Department of Transportation has changed the requirements for CDL holders, so our employees have to go through that training as well. But we can do that. We provide that training for our employees. It's hard recruiting for engineers, especially PEs, so that's been a challenge for us.
So that specifically, can I get a list of engineering positions
We
that
can.
we're interested in? Because, yeah, I can talk to the colleges.
All of our positions that require an engineering degree?
Yes.
Okay, we can do that. We can do it.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
just as a
You have a comment?
comment, just because within the company where I work, we look at this data a lot as well. One of the other parameters for retention is leadership behavior. So I want to mention that out in the open, and potentially we can look at leadership training in the near to midterm.
So we just brought on board a new organizational and training and organizational development manager, and so that is one of the things that he is going to be working on. He already hired one staff member working on the second one, and already he sent out he calls them micro-learning, and they're leadership learning courses that are available to all employees. We have had several employees already take that course, so leadership training is also very important. So, yeah.
Emilia, just one last thing real quick. I know that you mentioned there's 3 areas where there's been persistent vacancies. I know Dr. Holman talked about the requesting information on perhaps engineer, the most critical positions. I know from seeing other reports that we've had, PUB's had an extended period of time without employing any engineers. Do y'all engage in any recruitment at all, or when's the last time y'all went out to recruit for any of the critical areas?
So we are currently in the process of using an outside recruitment firm.
But when is the last time that y'all have used, y'all went out to recruit at Texas A&M or in Kingsville or?
So our staff does go, they have not gone to any career fairs at those universities. When we go out and look for when we do all of our recruitment internally, we do go out, we put it on like APPA, we put it out on TPPA, we use any kind of AWWA.
I think you guys are going to have to go out and find some of these people. For a utility of this size, with the need for engineers or other critical positions, and for those vacancies to be in existence for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, that's pretty tough. Anyway, your report has a lot of good stuff. I'd like to take another look at it myself. Thank you for your time.
I just want to mention that Ms. Gilbert has also challenged us to go out to A&M, to UT, to do their career fair. So that's something that our recruitment team is working on. But we are also working on a branding, marketing campaign, so that when we go out there, we can portray a good image of BPUB.
Sure, absolutely.
This does remind me, we did have, and this is one antidote, an individual who was going to school at UTRGV for engineering. And I believe, Marilyn, you and I were talking to him at the probably Thanksgiving party, but we'll have to sit down and talk about that person again and make sure we follow up and are offering him all the help he might need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Getter. We're going to ask for Mr. Dombrowski to give us an update on SpaceX.
So I already mentioned that on March 11th, 2024, that we signed a 2-year amended agreement with water hauling with SpaceX, and that we've been providing the water hauling services to SpaceX since November of 2018. And that's because facilities are not located in any water service provider certificated area, so there's no provider out there. Under this agreement, water is hauled by TCEQ tankers. They're owned either by BPUB or by SpaceX as well, from a supply point that is near our airport, the Brownsville Airport, to the SpaceX facilities out at Boca Chica. And the agreement includes a fixed monthly capacity payment, a volumetric charge for the actual gallons that are taken or delivered, and a drought stage conservation surcharge. What that means is anytime we're at stage 2 or higher, as declared by the CEO and mayor, that there is an additional charge on certain volumes of water if they take them at that surcharge. And this is outlined in our drought contingency plan. Both the fixed capacity payment and the volumetric charges are based on our actual cost, and both are designed to be a full cost recovery contract. And so they're covering the full cost of the water, the hauling, personnel, the treatment for those costs.
So, do we have any extra responsibility for these vehicles that are actually hauling the water out? Are we responsible for any of their inspections, their
So
cleaning?
we have 4 vehicles that are BPUB owned that are used to haul the water. They're also used for other purposes in terms of emergency because they're TCEQ certified. They can haul the water like in emergencies. I know when we had the migrant crisis about a year and a half ago, we used the tankers to haul water. If we had another emergency, we could use the tankers at that time. SpaceX went out and purchased 4 additional water haulers. And so those belong to SpaceX. They pick up at the same point there out by the airport for $1 million and haul the water out there.
And so our 4 water haulers, are they committed to 100% of the time hauling for SpaceX, or we can still use them for emergency
Right, so we
purposes?
do have contingencies in the contract, like a force majeure. If we had an emergency, we would divert those haulers to public purpose. On a daily basis, they are being utilized for this contract to haul water out to SpaceX.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
I
didn't hear
We're
that.
ready for your presentation.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. My name is Estrella Solórzano. I am the Director of Customer and Support Services. As requested by the Regulatory and Policy Committee, I am here today presenting the implementation of the Brownsville Public Utilities Payment Arrangement Policy, and I'm going to start with a little bit of a background. The Brownsville Public Utilities Board recognizes that customers may need additional time to pay off an amount owed on an active account to avoid service interruption. Currently, BPUB does not have a payment arrangement policy. Historically, the payment arrangement option was only extended to residential customers. In 2020 and in 2022, temporary moratoriums suspended the collection of late payment penalty fees and disconnection of service for non-payment. To assist customers who get caught up with the utility bill after the moratorium, BPUB established the practice to extend payment arrangement to commercial customers upon request. The request to implement the payment arrangements policy is to allow staff to operate as it was prior to the 2020 and 2022 moratoriums, now that COVID has passed. It's been a while since COVID and the moratoriums have passed. So the payment arrangement policy that is being proposed today establishes the terms and conditions to qualify for a payment arrangement. The policy only applies to active residential customers. Commercial, senior accounts, and accounts with an installment plan do not qualify for a payment arrangement. BPUB staff has talked to several utilities and found that the payment arrangement option is not offered to commercial customers, so it is a utility practice. This is a common utility practice. They also allow for most of the companies that I spoke with, utility companies that I spoke with, only allow for one payment arrangement in a 12-month period, and they charge an administrative fee. We don't do that. The payment arrangement policy was presented to PubCap on April 17th, 2024, as directed by the committee members on the regulatory policy meeting on April 3rd. So we have gone to the committee twice. This is prior to coming to the board. They have presented some recommendations. We have implemented those changes. I know the presentation is in your packet. I can go over the presentation, or I can entertain any questions that you may have.
I think everyone's probably already reviewed the presentation or have listened to it through a committee. Is there any questions or concerns on this item?
If there are no questions, I'm going to read the recommended action.
Okay.
BPUB staff recommends the board approval to implement the Brownsville Public Utilities Board payment arrangement policy.
Okay.
I make a motion.
We have a motion by Dr. Salmona and seconded by Dr. Holman. All those in favor of passing this item, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Okay, so now this item passes. We'll move on to the next one.
Thank you. As requested by the Policy Committee on May 9th, this evening I am presenting the implementation of the Brownsville Public Utilities Installment Plan Policy. The installment plan policy was created based on feedback received the initial time that we did go to the Regulatory and Policy Committee, mostly because there was confusion between how the payment arrangement and the installment plan policy were defined. So this was created, was taken to PubCap. There was no feedback provided by PubCap members at this time. We did present it to our policy committee on the 9th, and that's why we're here. So just like the payment arrangement policy, this is a brand-new policy. BPUB does not currently have an installment plan policy. The policy applies to active residential customers, and accounts with a payment arrangement do not qualify for an installment plan. Initially, senior accounts were not in this policy. We removed seniors, so they now apply, can request an installment plan. And except as provided within the policy, commercial accounts do qualify for an installment plan. That's on out-of-the-norm situations such as a water leak, bless you, that can increase the bill or have major impact on the bill. Again, I can go over the presentation. I know it's in your packet, or I can entertain any questions at this time.
If there's no questions, do you have a recommendation from administration?
So BPUB staff recommends the board approval to implement the Brownsville Public Utilities Board installment plan policy.
Okay, board members, you have one more opportunity to ask questions. If not, we'll entertain motions.
I make a motion.
You have a motion by
Second that.
Mr. Sorry? We have a break. Okay, we have Mr. Sampaio then with a motion, Mr. Nida with a second. All those in favor of passing this item, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Okay, this item passes. Thank you, Ms. Sedana, for your efficiency, and
Thank you, Mr.
we'll
Nida.
move on to the next item, which is number 7, consideration possible action to authorize the general manager and chief executive officer to negotiate and execute professional consulting and technical services contract to address large volume of pole attachment requests. Mr. Cortinas.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Cesar Cortinas, Director of Electrical Engineering and System Operations. So BPUB staff working with communication companies requesting attachment to BPUB poles to expand high-speed internet access to the city of Brownsville. BPUB anticipates more than 12,000 pole attachment requests to be submitted by utilities over the next 8 to 10 months, including the pending pole attachment application from BTX, Lead Fiber Last Mile, which the city has thus far committed to reimburse BPUB up to $1.2 million. These and any commitment to pay costs above such amount are not yet finalized with the city. Discussions are also ongoing with another communication company that may direct absorb these additional costs, but this discussion had barely in the initial stage. So BPUB does not currently staff to handle this level of pole attachment requests without significant delays. As such, BPUB solicits requests for qualifications for pole attachment support to assist BPUB with the anticipated upsurge. The engineering scope of work include the review of permit packages for attachments to the PUB electrical distribution transmission infrastructure as per NESC and BPUB standards. The request for qualifications was advertised in the Brownsville Herald March 16, the 23rd of this year, posted on BPU website, emailed to 8 to 10 vendors responding. The BPUB Purchasing Department opened responses on April 4. Then on April 17, BPU staff reviewed, scored, and ranked all the firms and shortlisted Cove Fenley of McAllen, Texas, and Osmo Utility Service INC of Burleson, Texas. The BPU staff is recommending negotiating contracts with each of the 2 top ranked firms with a total not to exceed amount of $1.2 million. Nevertheless, should the needs exceed the approved amount, BPUB staff will seek additional board authorization and approvals. So at this point, BPB staff recommends approval authorizing the general manager and chief executive officer to negotiate and execute professional consulting and technical services contracts with Cal Fenley and Osmo Utility Services, INC, consistent to this summary. Questions?
I have one, if you don't mind. I'm afraid the wording was a little unclear. So the city has committed to reimbursing up to 1.2 million or has not? Because it says they'll reimburse and then this and any commitment to pay costs above such are not yet formalized with the city. So I'm just want to make
Well, those
sure.
are communications that our CEO is handling, so I'll let him take care of that.
Right, so we have not gotten to the point, we have a formal agreement with the city, but we have an email from the city manager stating that they would reimburse us for these costs associated with the pole inspections.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, what does it take to get to a formal agreement with the city? I mean,
We'll have to draft that. I'll take the lead on that, drafting that agreement. It'd just be a letter agreement.
okay. Not a full contract or anything?
No, just
we
a
don't need.
clear understanding, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay.
Very well, then we know there's an email there and there's communication between the city and PUB, so
Oh,
we,
before that, sorry, I got to ask.
I'm sorry.
And I just have to admit, I don't know enough about city procedures. Has the city commission seen this? Do you have to approve it?
I've seen it. It's within the budgeted amount for the project. So these are funds that were allocated for this project.
Okay, so no other approvals are necessary. Great.
Okay, with that being clarified, we have a motion. Do we,
I make a
on the
motion.
table? Okay.
We have a recommendation.
We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion for this recommendation?
Move to approve.
I'll second. Oh, beat you.
Okay. We have Mr. Sampaio who made the motion, second by Dr. Holman, a close third by Dr. Swan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those against?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
so this motion passes. Thank you. All right, we have item number 8, consideration possible action to approve the acceptance of the Department of Energy
We should say congratulations to, he just left, never mind. I was going to say,
to,
we just had the assistant, right? He just got promoted to assistant city manager. Okay, so, got to sit in and see us for a little
I
bit.
didn't see him, I'm sorry, I would have
Oh,
recognized
he was
him.
in the background. I was waiting to jump in and then, yeah. Yeah, somebody tackle him on the way out, please.
Okay, Eddie, let me get back to this item. Consideration of possible action to approve the acceptance of the Department of Energy American Public Power Association sub-award. We're looking for the Reader Digest version. Do you have that?
Chairman, members of the board, the Department of Energy entered into a cooperative agreement with the American Public Power Association to facilitate the rapid adoption and deployment of industrial control systems, cybersecurity technologies for distribution and municipal utilities. The APPA contracts with utilities through the sub-award to help utilities address and overcome key cybersecurity challenges and maximize the long-term robustness and overall effectiveness of deployed solutions for the benefit of the whole electric industry. The total sub-award amount is $207,942. PUB's cost share percentage is 10%, which amounts to about $20,794. PUB staff obviously recommends that we enter into the agreement. The recommended action, BPUB staff recommends the board authorize the general manager and chief executive officer to execute the contract with APPA.
Okay, we have a recommended action. We thank you for that information. Any questions or comments on this item?
I'll move to authorize.
Okay, we have
I'll
a
second that.
motion by Mr. Sampaio, second by Dr. Holman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those
Aye.
against? This motion passes. Mr. Hernandez, thank you. Okay, before we recess into closed session, we have some items here to read at this time. The items on the agenda designated for closed meeting will be considered. Meeting with the board's legal counsel for advice and contemplated impending court and administrative litigation on matters in which the duty of the attorney under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct conflicts with Chapter 551, Section 551.071, including but not limited to the following. A, reports of local and special counsel. B, vendor duties, obligations, tree trimming, cross-connection inspections. C, pretreatment ordinance duties, obligations, and ongoing negotiations related to the potential extension of facilities for SpaceX. Number 2, presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation of information upon pricing of purchased power, generation, and fuel, and their impact upon the fuel purchase, energy, and marketing charge, Section 551.086. I'll entertain a motion to move into closed meeting.
So moved.
So, motion by Mr. Sampaio, second by Dr. Holman. All those in favor of going into closed meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? We will now go into closed session.
You're gonna get.
Tú tienes que ser más rápida.
Quicker than I thought.
Okay, we are back from closed meeting. It is 8:14. At this time, we have no items to bring it back to the meeting from executive session. We have consideration action on future agenda items. Anybody want to have any future agenda items? Mr. Sampaio?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, due to a scheduling conflict for next month's meeting, I will be unable to attend. And barring any special meetings, that makes this my final meeting as a board member for PUB. And so I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all 593 members of the BPUB workforce. It's been a true honor to have served alongside all of you as a member of the BPUB team, and would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you for your commitment and dedication to this community. Again, it's been a true honor to have served alongside of you. And that goes for my fellow board members as well. So thank you very much for everything that you do every day for Brownsville and for its residents. And not only as a board member, but also as a member of this community and as a BPUB customer, again, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. So it's been an honor to have served. I've enjoyed these last 4 years. To being here, and thank you for doing all the heavy lifting, and to all of to the rest of the board members, thanks for your time and your commitment to this organization as well. So thank you very much.
Mr. Sampaio, thank you for the kind words. I, for one, would like to absolutely, it's been an honor to work side by side with Mr. Sampaio for the last couple of years. And we are sad to see him leave. I think there's been some discussion about trying to keep him on board, but he has made up his mind. So we certainly are going to miss him. Any other comments from your fellow colleagues, board members?
Thank you. It's been an honor.
I'm going to be able to sit there now, right?
Yes, sir. You
may not want to.
Mr. Calvin, Mayor?
Yeah, I do want to say thank you so much to Mr. Sampaio for his service. I've had the pleasure of serving with him on a couple of boards now, and he takes the time to become a subject matter expert at the board level, and it really take a deep dive into providing solutions and providing good guidance to staff and to our team. So I think we wouldn't have been able to get through what we've had to go through without the support of Patricio. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
And I agree with that 100%. Any requests for future items, Dr. Zamora?
Well, with that,
No,
I'd like to make my final motion.
Yeah.
Oh, you made a motion. We have a motion to adjourn this meeting. We have a second.
I'll second that.
A second by the mayor. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those against, say aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.